See, so what I usually do is I just come in on a conversation and nobody has any context for. And because we come in with no context, people think that it's totally unprofessional and that the camera is just starting. But when in reality, I'm just doing this act every time at the beginning of the show so that nobody catches on. And we're live on the Patron Hangout today. If we look a little underdressed, it's because it's hot, and deal with it. It is very hot here north of the border on Canada Day, July 1st, 2018.
Our country is 151 years old.
Yeah,
apparently.
151 years old.
Why did we suddenly just lose all light?
What do you mean, why did we suddenly lose all light?
Just like a giant shadow.
Well, stay in the light then. And what do you want me to tell you? Why are you making competent comments about it? Why are you drawing attention to it, Amber? So we're having a little bit of a problem with Patreon. So hopefully everybody who is a patron get some form of our message and jumps on our patron-only Discord and kind of finds their way onto the Hangout. So as you can imagine, it's going to be us talking, as we often do, for a little bit. The Patron Hangout, of course, what we do is we like to take a little bit to thank those of you who like to, help us directly financially in some way, shape, or form, and let them find out things about us. Ask any question they want. We don't care if it's about HeroClix, movies, whatever. We also do address in the chat super chats. Chats that have a little donation attached to them, we will pay attention and kind of create that as what we like to call it, patron for a day, as it were, a patron for the episode, and you get our patron level attention, of course, because of that. So a few patrons are a little camera shy, so they're free to ask questions in the patron Discord, which is a part of our Patreon program. You can check us out at patreon.com/marriedwithclicks on a day when Patreon servers aren't down. Today is not that day, apparently. So there we go. Yeah, I guess it's time to, get into what few questions we have and then tangent off of that and find some other topics until we're, we have somebody to join us on the chat.
Sounds like a great way of doing it.
This is going to be the way we have to do it right now. And in fact, I don't know why I'm trying to use my phone because I have it on screen right here. Nathaniel wants to know if Jason was a Pokemon. First of all, he leads with "Happy Canada Day, you crazy maple syrup loving crazies." And I feel sticky from the heat, like I am doused in maple syrup. Maybe that's what causes heat in Canada, is actually high vibrations of tree sap, which lead to maple syrup in the air and cause stickiness. I don't know. If Jason was a Pokemon, would he really be Pikachu? What about Amber? Just got my PAX Unplugged badge today. We actually ordered ours. We're going to be doing the pickup. We ordered it online and didn't want to pay, it was $20 shipping to get it here to Canada.
Oh, it was weird. It was like $30 American to ship it to Canada. I was like,
to ship a badge.
I'm like, oh, I'll just pick it up when we're there.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
Like, seriously, you're literally sending us paper. Like, I send action tokens to the States on a semi-regular basis, courtesy of our Patreon program, and it cost me 2 stamps, which is about $2. What are they sending it in a golden envelope? Is it on the back of a rare breed of albino camel? Like
the ivory envelopes.
Like, I don't get why the shipping for 2 pieces of paper with some string and a plastic really costs that much money. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Shipping is incredible.
Shipping costs make no sense to me, and I figure it's a shipping and handling. I don't know. We're off on a tangent.
We're already on a tangent.
The question was about Pokemon, and would I be a Pikachu? I am not small enough to be a Pikachu. I just happen to have this shirt because I got it for real cheap at a Hot Topic outlet store in New Orleans. Well, we happen to be there. I think we were getting them for like $10 a pop.
I think we got them for like $7 American.
Okay.
And then when we came back home to Canada, they're like $25 tank tops.
So I was more than happy to get a stack of nerdy tank tops.
I don't know. I just realized that the top I'm wearing is from Hot Topic too. And I got it on sale for $10.
I've also got a couple wrestling shirts at Hot Topic recently. Those of you who have caught my Bullet Club T-shirts from there. Anyway, Pokemon. What Pokemon would I be? You know what? Let's play the game where we say what the other person would be as a Pokemon. Amber.
Okay.
You would be, beyond a shadow of a doubt, a Jigglypuff. Yeah, definitely a Jigglypuff.
Okay, I can deal with that.
You got the right amount of sass. I swear I caught her with a Sharpie over my head once while I was snoring. I'm sure. She lulls me to sleep with a lullaby on a regular basis, semi-regular basis, and she's effing adorable. So yes, Amber would be a Jigglypuff.
I'm okay with that.
All right, Amber, what would I be as a Pokemon? What would I be?
Rhydon.
Is that a pun?
I mean, it can be. What's the rating on
I
this
just want to be sure. The rating on this show, by the way, I should mention, we don't meter our patrons, and sometimes they slip up, and therefore we can't, maybe kids shouldn't be watching, or if we say something in front of the kids, sorry. Sorry, what were you saying, Amber? About what Pokemon I would be? I gave you time. I bought you time.
I'm still sticking with Rhydon.
Okay, I'm just checking. Why Rhydon?
I don't know. Big, tough rock horse rhino thing.
Are you saying I'm the big, tough rock horse rhino?
Yes.
Rock horse rhino.
Rock horse rhino.
Rock horse rhino.
Rock horse rhino.
Now, is it Rhydon or Rhydon is the big one, right? The evolution.
The evolution. Because Rhyhorn's the one that stands up, and then Rhydon's the one that goes on all fours and you actually ride it.
So I'm the first evolution? I'm not even the top evolution?
There's another evolution of Rhydon now?
Rhydon evolves!
God damn.
Rhydon evolves into Rhyhorn. It evolves into... Wait, no, it starts with
Rhyhorn evolves into Rhydon.
And then Rhydon evolves into something else. But that's actually an X and Y thing, and I think you only get it from trading. I got to actually...
Or is it one of the steel ones? Like Steelix?
No. It doesn't turn into a steel one.
See?
Yeah,
Rock horse rhino.
Rock... turns into Rhydon, and then Rhydon turns into the...
did I have it backwards? It's Rhyhorn?
Rhyhorn is the first one. Rhydon is what it becomes.
So I'm saying Rhyhorn then.
Okay, so you're saying Rhyhorn.
Yeah, before it evolves.
Cool. Because then I might be making things up. Rhyperior.
Okay.
Rhyperior was the late generation extra evolution on top of Rhydon. All right. Does her singing put others to sleep? I'm not saying she has. I'm just saying she could. She's sung lullabies to my children.
I have.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, just making sure because I'm
I
not around.
I used to have to with Alexis because she was horrible getting to sleep.
I used to sing heavy metal songs like lullabies to her when she would really be cranky. I'd hold her up to my chest and sing like Enter Sandman or Painkiller.
I mean, when she was a baby, we actually had a car. We used to have to drive around playing Slipknot to get her to sleep.
Yeah, but Psychosocial put her to sleep quite well.
Yeah.
I think it's that regular rhythmic drum. Once you really get into it, it can really just knock you out. Speaking of which, while we were chit-chatting, and because there's only two people in the room nobody saw, Michael Fedor came in all of a sudden. Look at this. His setup looks more professional than ours, Amber.
I know. It's like, I'm not going to lie about that.
We're the one with the Patreon, and he's the one with the better setup than we have. Oh, my goodness. I think it's because I started paying those guys on the Metal Lab. Not much, but I started paying them. For realsies now. All right, Michael, the floor is yours, sir. The Alpha and the Omega. I'm sure you'll be the Omega.
Everyone, it's really great to be here. So happy Canada Day to all my friends up there. I hope you're having a safe weekend and all that good fun stuff. And so getting right to it then, let's see. All right, let me get to one that I somehow forgot from last month. I wanted to ask you guys, I was trying to build this team, so I wanted to know, I had the choice either with the dune buggy, or no, I'm sorry, it was the spider buggy or a Green Lantern for the Green Lantern team ability. So, in your opinion, which one should I go with? Should I go with the vehicle? If I should build another team again like that, and it comes down to those two choices for a carrier or taxi or something like that, do I want the Green Lantern team ability, or do I want the vehicle?
That depends on how many figures you have on your team. Because the Green Lantern, he can carry 8 figures. So that's great if you have 2 or more for the most part. But beyond that, it's unless you have 2 or more, it's not doing you a whole lot of good. Was it the spider buggy or the dune buggy? Did you say was the vehicle?
In this particular team, it was the spider buggy.
Spider buggy. Okay,
about 50 points or something like that.
Yeah, I would look at the spider buggy and the dune buggy. I think are both in that category of vehicles that their job isn't to carry too many people. I think the dune buggy only has 1 passenger, so you'll get the driver and the I think it's spider dash buggy.
Yeah.
Actually, I unprofessionally don't have HC Realms up over here as I usually do. So
No, it's just gonna be annoying.
why don't you just check the you passed it because Avengers Infinity would have the Spider-Mobile.
Spider-Mobile.
It's called the Spider-Mobile. That's why we keep calling it the Spider Buggy because it's built like a Doom Buggy. It's only got 1 passenger as well. Yeah. So vehicles, these 2 vehicles in particular, because I guess they went with it only has 1 passenger seat on the vehicle. They only have passenger 1. So their main function isn't actually carrying somebody. The Green Lantern's function is carrying multiple people. These ones kind of carry a person, and that's kind of a bonus on whatever they do. The dune buggy itself is, I think, better as the terrain or using the terrain dial, whereas the spider buggy has a little bit more effect on top of it. But if I was to go in given the situation that you're looking for something to carry people with, I would definitely lean Green Lantern side over the vehicle. The
spider buggy is pretty cool because it can turn off shape change and stealth.
So if those are problems for you, yeah.
Yeah, like it has its own function, but as a carrier for a team, like you'll have the pilot and then 1 passenger to go with it versus, as Jason was saying, a Green Lantern who has the capability of carrying an entire team. Yeah.
Also, though, as another aside, if you can fit it, spend 5 points on a dune buggy as a terrain and throw on a Green Lantern. That terrain defensively can really help you a lot because everybody within 4 squares of it gets -1 attack. Granted, it is you as well, but if you're able to effectively use that and you have a team that wants to be in your opponent's face on the other side of the dune buggy, I like Wolverine teams with Lila Cheney. The fact that they're using boxing ring is a defensive measure in itself, but they could ideally, if you don't have a boxing ring, use a dune buggy, get on the other side of the map from it, and be fully effective with your attacks. And kind of it creates this little aura of disinterest. It's like people don't want to be near it. What's up?
Oh, it just HC Realms doesn't have the special terrain rules for the buggies.
Of course not. Can't blame the volunteers.
Nope.
It is what it is. But yeah, so in a nutshell, I think the 2 are different conversations you have with yourself. They're similar point values, so I understand why that conversation starts to happen. So outside of thinking of them both as passenger carriers, think of, do you need somebody carrying people? If your team consists of a bunch of moving attackers at decent ranges or decent movements, perhaps you don't need the Green Lantern per se. Yeah, that's my end thoughts on it. I think that's covers what I think about that one.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to it, like those 2 have, if we're doing specifically Green Lantern and Spider-Mobile, they have very different functions. So yeah, it really, really depends on what the rest of your team looks like and what you think your team is going to be needing within that specific character.
Now, I wonder, did I talk at length about this? And does that super rare Green Lantern have the Green Lantern team ability as well? You know the one I'm talking about, the one that brings people back to life?
Oh, yeah, I have no idea. That's the Barbara Gordon Green Lantern or something like that, right?
Something along those lines.
It's a female Green Lantern.
Yes. And was it a super rare or was it a rare? Green Oracle, I think is the one. Nope, Green Oracle. It's not Green Oracle. The one I'm thinking of is actually called Green Lantern. Does not have the Green Lantern team building.
Okay. Well, then never mind.
Hey, forget I went on that tangent. All right. Let's just get this mouse back in control, Michael. Next question, sir.
Alrighty. So, in a Golden Age construction game, does the new I guess everybody should be raving by now about all the new Janet Van Dyne, Giant Girl Colossals that have been in. And yes, I was able to pick up a starter pack with the Avengers Infinity like that. So yes, I am the proud owner of one of those. So I will she still be able to get called in on a WASP ID card?
That is a good question.
Are we talking about the
Because I don't know if she has
title
a real
character?
name.
I'm pretty sure she does. But there's also a WASP ID card.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just a matter of.
Oh no, but her name isn't actually WASP. It's WASP, part of the Avengers or something like that, right?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. If she, Janet Van Dyne, and
it's gonna be like Janet Pym for the ID card, isn't it?
Was it in a set?
It was in Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron.
Age de Ultron. Oui. Age of Ultron. I really should have this just like up because I can navigate this really quick. I know I can. No, Internet Edge. Nobody wants you ever. Jeez Louise. It panicked. It's like, oh my God, somebody's opening me.
Janet Van Dyne. Okay. So in a specific Golden Age tournament, then yes, the Giant Girls can be called in because they have matching real names, which the older ID cards didn't get errated.
Wait, Giant Girl has Janet Van Dyne as her real name?
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, they didn't get errated to match the new rules. So the old ID cards will still function on the rules that are printed on their card, on the ID card. So they can still go by real name for qualifying call-ins. Whereas now the newer ones go by different aliases.
Sorry, I interrupted you there. Yes, real names.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, so we're going through real names there, and so for Golden Age, yes, the Giant Girls can be called in.
Awesome.
What is that noise coming from your side? Okay, it's gone.
We were trying to find a noise, and we weren't sure if we had a tab open that was making noises.
Yeah. I'm just opening up HC Round, so Mike, the floor is yours, sir.
Alrighty, we're burning through them pretty quick here tonight. Alrighty, as far as I unfortunately still have yet to pull a all new Wolverine and get all the cool benefits that she has, and and the Jonathan's piece there. So, but I have played. I went to one Steel tournament where every single team I played against had the all new Wolverine, and I'm trying to formulate a strategy against her and everything like that. So if you had your all new Wolverine on the team, what should
Amber just blew her head up with a
Yeah.
sneak. So bear with us here as she recombobulates her head.
Okay, then the noise was totally coming from your end, right there, right around in that area, right there. Yeah, that must be where the noise was coming from. All right, so as I was saying, if you were playing with All New Wolverine and had Jonathan on the field as well, would you want to keep those two pieces close by together, or would you kind of send Jonathan off, like on a tangent type of thing like that? Keep wouldn't matter with how far those two would get to, like that. So, how would you play that?
90% of that depends on what benefit I would get from sending Jonathan off on his own. It doesn't sound like there's much I could get out of that short of triggering a Colossal Retaliation, which, I mean, if I send Jonathan off on his own and I have Colossal Retaliators, if my opponent didn't see it coming, it's you deserve it. Like that's one of those things. I play Pog teams and I have Colossal Retaliators. I just see my opponents go, "Oh, this is gonna suck," as they attack a 0-point Pog to attract my Colossal Retaliator.
Gee, I wonder what that's like. Except we didn't have Colossal Retaliators on the weekend.
No, I just had Pogs, and you had to shovel through squirrels and cravens and the only person who didn't have to deal with my Pog onslaught was my last opponent, the young kid there. What was his name? Hudson?
Hudson, yeah, because Krakoa killed him.
Yeah, because Krakoa kept killing all of my Pogs. Like, turn 1, I rolled the Earthquake, lost all of my cravens. Turn 2, Earthquake again, lost my squirrel. It's just, anyway, tangent done. What are we talking about?
Jonathan.
We're talking about Jonathan. Yeah, so that's one idea of bringing Jonathan off to the distance. But when it comes to close combat teams, I wouldn't even start with Jonathan on the board. I would wait until you're about to attack with, or once you've charged in with All New Wolverine, then take your free action, bring out Jonathan, and attack with Jonathan again. So, like, hold Jonathan back until you need him is really what I would suggest. A lot of people use her as part of an ID card strategy too, where you end up getting a permanent character out of an ID card out of Jonathan, and Jonathan actually has been ruled that his effect of "you got to kill me twice" exists, regardless of All New Wolverine. So that's a Pog that's technically got 2 attacks that need to kill it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What else is there to say about that?
I don't know. Like, every time that I have played, because I've played her a lot, actually. Every time I've played All New Wolverine, each time I have managed to get Jonathan, because I don't bring Jonathan out right away. I usually bring Jonathan out as kind of a combo attack. So I'll go in with her, and then if I need something to finish off whatever it is I'm killing, I'll bring out Jonathan and then use him to attack, because it's free to bring him onto the board. And then if he kills the person, fantastic, I got a kill out of that. And if it doesn't, now they've got Laura and Jonathan in their face to deal with, and Jonathan's going to take 2 successful hits to die. So yeah, I think really I think he functions better as like a 1-2 punch with All New Wolverine than trying to bring him out early and then send him off on his own. Now, if he's still around and Laura's gone, or they somehow get separated, I mean, by all means, utilize him. Use him as best you can, because he's got some pretty decent stats when it comes down to it. But there's no real reason to send him off on his own as a strategy in itself. Kind of just play off how your board state is going and see where the game goes from there.
Yeah, don't be in a rush to get out the Badger.
Badger.
Is he a Honey Badger? I don't remember.
No, I think he is
an actual Wolverine? Okay.
Yeah. I have to read that series.
Oh, no, Honey Badger is the name of the character that's hanging out with.
Yeah, apparently that's what Gabby's superhero name is.
The Honey Badger. That's internet. It's not even
so weird. Like, even that whole storyline is just weird. They started the All New Wolverine, her solo book, with her discovering that another like Hydra facility, or I don't think it's Hydra. Hydra was her original origin. But yeah, they found out that the facility that made, I think it's actually called that, the facility that made her Once she was successful and went rogue and whatever, they took all of her DNA and cloned her, and there's like hundreds of clones of her. So they are clones of a clone of Wolverine. And they're all at different ages. So there's one that's really old. There's a couple that are the same age as Laura. There's one that's really young, and the one that's really young is like 10, and that's the honey badger. And apparently she adopts a Wolverine at one point.
I do want to make the point that I saw this movie before, and it sucked. And I never want to watch Resident Evil 3 again.
God, that was so bad.
All right, Mike, you're up.
Alrighty, so I've also noticed within the different sets now, like even with the new turtles and things like that, and fairly recent sets, they seem to have shrunk down the range on these, with the exception of maybe Kronos. Thank you, Kronos. Like, you're awesome. You are amazing. He's got 9 range, and it seems like most of them either have are capped off at 7 or 5 or so, maybe even 4. So when you're doing your videos and you're assessing a piece and stuff like that, and you want to say, oh, this piece has great range, what, in your opinion, would qualify as great range? Even in the new meta, I suppose. Have you noticed that things are changing a little bit with that?
Grand scale of things, since set number 1, range has actually gone down drastically. The game has always started at range; it's a thing. But if you things, it's not an individual factor that has led to the shrinking of range. There's been a lot of factors to it. If you go back to the first ever map made by HeroClix, I think it was like 36 by 36, right?
It was huge.
They were huge. They were massive maps. Like every single one-on-one game was played on a 36 by 36 map. So a 10 range in that kind of environment is not as bad as it seems like. Until people started, carrying Firelord with Wasp and then shooting 10 squares away for 5 damage. That's gross. But it was around Armor Wars. Armor Wars, I think, was the first set that had the new map size, which was the current 18 by 24 that we deal with now. So it was like half one way and like 3/4 of it the other way. It was good for a number of reasons, one of which was the massive amount of space that we used to need to run HeroClix tournaments was drastically reduced. Thank goodness, because trying to run HeroClix tournaments on 36 by 36 maps when 20 people show up for an event, that's at least 10. You need 360 inches and 40 feet worth of space in order to play HeroClix. That's probably a rough estimate at best. But as I'm saying, it's like the game was a bigger game, and then the game itself shrunk. So then ranges had to shrink a little bit from there. But then now they're drastically shrinking ranges again, more recently. Like you said, Kronos is an exception. Infinity is an exception. There's always exceptions. And part of it is scaling to meet the need. And what I mean by that is, in set 1, Veteran Cyclops had a 10 range. That's huge now. But what we're saying then at the same point is that the Veteran Cyclops can shoot his eye beams at the same level as a cosmic colossal being. Maybe not. When you have characters like Infinity and Kronos, they need large ranges, but anything larger than a 12 is bollocks nonsense, as they discovered with the 16 range Galactus that they made in the first run of Galactus. When they created the first Galactus, game balance didn't exist, as their opinion for that figure. And it shows when you have a character with 16 range, 16 attack, and 7 to 8 damage. It's just okay. But so the maps had to shrink, ranges had to shrink as a result of the map shrinking. But then they had to take it another step further recently, where they want the game to be played more interestingly and more strategically. They want to put a strategy game in the tabletop strategy game. So you need a little bit more forward movement. You need positioning. You need to focus things. Now, that means as well, though, as a result, when you have a character like Unimind, you have a character like Infinity, you have a character like Unseen, they're going to make effective use of those ranges, especially if you look back on what Abdul played in he made top 2 at U.S. Nationals, where he had a Star Fox making close combat attacks at 8 squares away. He had Infinity taking pot shots and outwitting and barriering 12 squares away, and those and Unseen probing and outwitting at long distances. Those all kind of culminate into what people are maximizing. So it's where I'm going with this nonsense tangent that leads to a tangent over there is that they need ranges to reflect on the character a little bit more, but at the same time still maintain a strategy game to some degree. So it's that mixture of maintaining theme and balance in the same kind of game. And HeroClix gets a lot of credit as far as maintaining theme and balance in that sense, because you get a lot of freedom with a tabletop strategy game, especially once you take away the requirement to only have the basic powers. The second they introduced the cards, they really opened up the ability to make game design work for whatever they want a character to make happen, right? They also had hit a point where when they made a character, we all just said this is this. There's like 4 or 5 different definitions we had of characters, and they had to get beyond that. So all of that said, the shortening of range is to mix game balance and theme into what they have for future eyesight. So when you see Infinity with 12, that's a god, and you see Cyclops get dialed back to a 6 or 8, depending on the Cyclops you're looking at, that's a good dude who's really strong and should reflect that to a certain degree, but doesn't need to reflect it on the level of a god. Did I over-explain that?
No. I think actually one of the big factors too in bringing down ranges happened about, I'm going to say 5 years ago now, when they went into the pack and they changed the minimum range for Prob and Outwit and Perplex and now TK. That drastically changed the environment when it comes to actually functioning for strategy wise and stuff, is that your general characters, especially with like say theme Prob, having shrunken down all of your utilities makes you want to be in a closer match, because for those of you guys that weren't around at the time before that pack got changed, minimum for those utility powers, Prob, Perplex, Outwit, used to be 10.
Oh, it's fireworks. That's what I was hearing.
Oh, that makes so much more sense. Yeah, it used to be 10. So, and that, like, when you think that your map is, what did we say, 24 by 18? Mm-hmm. And your prob range is 10, that's almost half of the map.
That's half of the map width-wise.
Yeah. So, like, that's a good portion of the map that you're able to use all of these utility support pieces, which means you don't need those guys in the fight. As long as they have a line of fire, they can be held back into safe zones and they're still utilized. But once you drastically shrunk that down from 10 to 6, that really, really, really cuts down. Now you're at a quarter of the map, where all of your utility pieces really need to stick by. And that has changed the strategy and how things are played, but then also how characters are designed. Because then you get a character who maybe is all-seeing or all-knowing and stuff, where you get something like Infinity, who can use her Outwit at 12 range. Because Cosmic Deity Goddess, yeah, she can see all the way through half the map. It makes sense. So it allows them that freedom to really make all of these impressive guys at like 12 range rather than giving everybody 10 range. I was just kind of building on what you were saying.
Build further on top of that, I also want to point out that the reduction of range is also the creation of mistakes. Because when you have massive amounts of range, the wide berth you have for line of fire is, so like I have 10 range and I'm attacking you at 10 range, and this is my line of fire. And then now I'm attacking at 6, and then all of a sudden it shrinks down a little. because I've got to get in there and I got to move, and then there's going to be terrain that's way more functional in that kind of short range. And then characters who are beside are losing so many line of. I can't tell you how many times I've blocked my own line of fire on some things.
So many times.
Like I do it all the time, and the team that I used to use the most took the biggest hit, and that was the PD/Hydra teams that I used to run. I used to run massive amounts of teams where my ranged character would either ignore characters in some way, shape, or form, or just be beside dudes that have the Hydra team ability, and then they need to be able to draw lines of fire. That's fine. You could like with a character like the current Green Arrow, if you have 3 Hydra guys in front of them, as long as they can see who the Green Arrow's attacking, Green Arrow's going to be attacking a guy who's -3 attack or -3 defense, and that's, whew, that's something huge. But the creation of error and the shrinking of effectiveness on these types of things is another key factor, and you don't think about it sometimes until you start to realize it. My probability control has also been a nightmare for me because that's the power I need the most, and then I have to spend so much. I've spent so many turns and so many actions. Like since the change to 6 range, I can count about 750 actions that were just I need my probability control where I need it to be.
I can't tell you how many times I have been 7 squares away. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna prob. Oh, I'm 7 squares away. Because the difference, it's just a weird visual thing, because the difference between 6 and 10 is huge. Like when you're actually looking at the map, that's a huge difference. So when that got shrunk down, it's like, okay, well now I really need to be close. But then when you're looking at the difference between 6 and 7 and just trying to eyeball it on the map, where it's like, okay, well he's 10 squares away. I know I definitely can't see you for prob. When it's like, oh, I've got this. Oh shit, I'm 6 or 7 squares away.
Or I do
all the time.
I do it to her all the time, and I will attack at 7 squares away as long as her prob controller only has 6 or less range.
Yep.
I'll attack from 7 squares away and watch her count and be like, nope.
Yeah.
Before she even gets halfway through, like, you did it again, didn't you?
Bastard.
That's why people bring infinity. I get +1 range, you get -1 range. I'm more effective.
See, and like on top of that, you got this thing that can outwit at 12 squares away, and then she's dropping your range. So it's like, all right, well, I have even less range than I started. Yeah. So when it comes down to it, when we say that character has great range, we're talking about 8 and above, because 6 has now become kind of average.
6 is great as long as what you're doing with the range is great. And that's the other thing. You have to include the fact that
if you can hear it, Canada Day celebrations, there's going to be fireworks in the background.
We are not getting shot, we promise. And a 6 range is great as long as what you're doing at 6 range is also great. And that's I think that might be where you're going with that. Is like, but a 6 range isn't that great. Sure, it is. If I have a 5 movement running shot, or 4 movement running shot, I've effectively got a 10 square reach. Or if at 6 range I'm doing 12 damage, that's an exaggeration, of course. Now, I'm not saying you're going to do 12 damage at 6 range. What I'm saying is you do a lot of damage at that 6 range. That's still okay. So 6 is, when Amber says 6 is relatively average and 8 is a great range, 6 is still a great range so long as you're doing the right things with it, whereas an 8 range is amazing on its own without anything awesome happening. And then a 12 range is ungodly awesome, and my gosh, Infinity is so good.
I love her.
I love it. Yeah. All right. I think we've over-answered the crap out of this question. When it comes to game design, we always go overboard.
That's the one where we're going to go.
It's our trigger word. You're up, sir.
Okay, so this is probably another one of those tangent questions. So, of course, you might not know the exact answer. I just want to get your feedback on that, since I talked to everyone that has come back from Origins and everything like that, and nobody's saying anything, or I haven't heard anything about any neoprene maps or anything like that. I thought they were a big hit a couple years ago. and I want to know if is there any backstory or anything you can tell us, like as to why they stopped doing that. I thought maybe they can get at least 1 or 2 a year in like that and bring them out for origins like that. But why is it not a thing?
Before I get to that, Nathaniel, I promise you your question is next. As far as the neoprene maps, we have no idea either what their plan is. At one point, there was a plan to use the Star Trek as a way of getting another neoprene map.
There was an actual like SKU and order form for venues to buy a Enterprise Bridge neoprene map, and then that got canceled really close to release date, and there was no word. They didn't actually put out like an official statement or anything, because it's all that whole behind the scenes thing. Only venues were supposed to know about it. It was part of the solicits, and then it just got canceled. There was a notice to venues that it got canceled, but no explanation as to why. We got the original 4, and then we got 2 more after that, and we haven't seen anything since then. My only guess really is that they may have had issues with production, and that they may feel that it wasn't cost effective to make them.
Do you know what was not cost effective? A non-HeroClix set of maps. They made 2 maps that were not HeroClix legal.
Oh, right. They made D&D maps, didn't they?
They didn't call them D&D maps. They just said they were like dungeon maps or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry? I don't want it. I'm not playing these other games. I don't know if they were marketed well enough or anything. I know me and Amber bought... we didn't buy all of them. We bought the 2 that I didn't come home with from Worlds that one year. Mm-hmm. The first year I went to Worlds. I came home with all of them, purchased from Tom except for one. Tom Kerr hooked me up good. And yeah, so I hooked him up with some dollars. He hooked me up with those maps, and I came home with them, and then only had to buy the 2. So that could be a thing where they actually already gave them to their captive audience. That could very well have been what didn't cause them to move. I mean, there's only let's say ballpark it, there was maybe about 200 people at that event. Let's just ballpark it roughly. I mean, certain number didn't make the cuts to when they needed to make the cuts, et cetera, et cetera. And then what they were doing is they were putting the maps on tables, and the winner would get the map of the game. So that's how they worked the system. And then, so as a result, a lot of players are getting a lot of these maps. So these maps are actually kind of out there already, and the people who were going to get them were at this event, with the exception of a few. And honestly, I've seen venues still have them. I've seen venues that have also sold out of all of them. So it does depend on the player base. Depends on how many keep in stock and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know the grand scale numbers, unfortunately, on how they sold. And that's the thing is, I talk game design. I don't talk business a lot. I don't talk business like I know what's going on. I talk business like I'm observing things. And my observation is I can't find these maps except for one store. Me and Amber are the only ones that go to the store that I know of that play HeroClix, with the exception of maybe a couple other guys who are our friends who we tell, hey, do you need this item? We can get it for you at the store, or you can pick it up yourself.
Yeah, it ended up being the only place left in the GTA, which is our
Greater Toronto area.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto.
That had the WizKids office, and one of our like newer teammates, Emily, didn't have that one yet, and we're like, okay, we have one for you. Like, we can go to the store right now and pick it up. And she's like, I've been searching for months. But yeah, they have more there that are just sitting there collecting dust, and I think some of it also comes down to design. WizKids Office was an incredibly high competitive map, and none of the others have seen competitive play. And I think like these are absolutely gorgeous maps. I don't know price-wise how it works out for the American dollar. They're not too expensive for us, but it's still a map that you're paying for in comparison to maps that you would win at a venue or buy in a starter set. So it's the first time that people had to really purchase maps. But then also there's no big drive. Like there's they weren't like named maps or anything. They were pretty generic when it came down to it. There was the convention center, the WizKids office, the cargo ship, the parking garage. They were just really generic locations. So you're not hitting the collector market because it's not like, hey, we're going to make OA, but it's going to be a neoprene map. And then it's like, all right, well, all your Green Lantern fans are now going out to buy this neoprene map because that's the only where we're getting OA. Like if they did named locations, like I understand that they were trying to do this more as like a company branded thing, because you do have the convention center with the WizKids booth and you have the WizKids office. And I think the parking garage was supposed to be connected to the convention center. So they did more of like a generic branding to it. But if they had gone the other direction and did an actual branding to it and released locations that have never been mapped before, then you hit your, not just your competitive market, but your collector market. And I think it just comes down to the thing that your average player, regardless of how gorgeous these maps are and how fantastic they are on camera, there isn't that huge need for them to have it. And I think that may have affected sales or even decisions higher up in the fact that, well, you know, nobody's really clamoring for these maps.
There is one other possibility. This is not necessarily real. This is pure possible speculation. Do not take anything I take as an actual theory of what I think happened. But there is the massive possibility that The Rock has created a confusion as far as the legality of these neoprene maps. The neoprene map prior to WizKids selling them was only a rock only thing. And then WizKids created these maps, and now we have confusion because as a player, if I am not 100% familiar with what maps The Rock has, and then somebody tells me, well, neoprene maps are rock prizing, what am I looking at on the shelf here? There's a level of confusion that can occur as far as the player base is concerned. I'm not saying this is factual, but what I'm saying is, Clix players are going to hate me for this. You guys are the worst listeners in the world. You do not listen to what you are told, and as a result, you jump to conclusions so quickly. I don't remember. I love the existence of The Rock because there's nothing worse than my only complaint for the game being I have too much to play. So that's not a complaint. I love the fact that The Rock exists because I have so many different avenues in which I can play HeroClix. Where I run into a problem sometimes is when I have to explain to new players that The Rock is giving out a game element that isn't necessarily legal in a WizKids sense. So if I have a full playable map, and then all of a sudden, I like, here's this neoprene map, I just got to prize this rock. Well, cool, that's great. But if we have a WizKids sanctioned event like a WKO or a WKO or a Nationals or Worlds, I can't use this map? No, you can't. I can only use that for rock events only or our local store events because we want people to come in and play still. And we don't want to give you a prize that you can't use. But then, we release these other maps. But now we've created this illusion, this weird illusion that rock maps are not legal, and therefore neoprene maps are rock maps, and rock maps are neoprene maps, and we can't use neoprene maps in HeroClix tournaments. Like, now granted, this is not the entirety of the player base, but this could be enough confusion for enough players who would be buying these maps that they don't know what the heck they're going to be doing with these maps and whether or not they should be buying them. Mm-hmm. An informed decision, if you see these little maps with the WizKids logo on the little box on the shelf, I suggest you buy them because they're the best map product that WizKids has actually gone out of their way to create for us. And I really appreciate the existence of this. These maps are very durable. I'm not worried about them ripping. I spill something on it, I just dry it. Apparently they're machine washable. I found out a little while ago. That's amazing. These things are such a good investment. And as long as WizKids doesn't rotate them, they're even better. And there's no sign of them rotating them because what are they released with? right? That could be another thing, is these maps could have longevity as the meta shifts and grows. We could actually find out that wide open with a little bit of hindering terrain convention center map, the indoor map, could blow the metagame out of the sky. And if they continue to let them be illegal, that would be great. But then, so again, this is just like that whole thing. There's a level of confusion that was created because we have two legs of tournaments, two groups that are making this product for tournaments. I am not saying The Rock shouldn't do it, but I do believe that if you're running into something like the Rock and the level of what they're running with, the challenge on them is to make a prize that we all want to go out and get. And this isn't like this is where I do a lot of comparisons on Magic the Gathering and how Star City Games runs its events and Wizards of the Coast runs their events. The problem is that the end result of both of these is money, the universal gift card. So if Star City Games is giving away money, cool. If Magic the Gathering is giving away money, cool, right? I go use my money on more Magic cards, Magic wins, right? Or I go to more Magic events with my money. But with this Rock and WizKids divide, I've got a product coming from the Rock that I can't use in certain WizKids events, and I got this WizKids product that I can't use, that I can use at both events. But then I get confused if I'm not fully informed on this. So I'm hoping a lot of people are now informed. The maps that you can purchase off the shelf at your local game store are WizKids legal maps as long as they came in that box with the WizKids logo on. If it's a Rock event map, that's not going to be legal at certain events such as WKOs, Nationals, Worlds, and big WizKids events. But WizKids only runs 3 types of events, so great, cool. So again, this isn't my actual thought. This is just a possibility. And this is what could have possibly led to a thing. And I led this with, this is speculation. This is not necessarily what I think. I'm going to post-seed this with, this is speculation. This is not necessarily what I think. People may be smarter, but we as a community are not good listeners. HeroClix players are very bad listeners. I'm notoriously bad at paying attention to what I'm being told in some cases too, or even, heck, reading cards properly. I'm still guilty of it on first read, especially on the channel. If I've ever incorrectly read a card, much like Scott Porter, we're cold reading because the unboxings that we do and the reviews that we do are done on the same day within the same half hour to an hour. So if I'm reading a card 9 times out of 10, it's the first time I'm reading the card because we got to get through these videos. Anyway, that's why that's one of many reasons. Who knows outside of that? I could guess more if I wanted to, but it's an impossible answer for me to give because I'm not in Justin Zern's ear, and nor do I want to bother him much. I would prefer to talk to somebody in game design than the CEO of the company. Not that I don't like him. It's just not the guy I want to talk to. I'm a game designer. All right. Mike, before we get to your next question, I have Nathaniel had a question there, and he wants to know, is cosmic the most powerful keyword right now? And the correct answer for that is absolutely. It is the most versatile generic keyword out there, and especially with the big bump it got in Avengers Infinity. I mean, if we look at what just ran house in the beginning of, or U.S. Nationals rather, and the top 4, the top 4 alone had 2 cosmic theme teams, if I remember correctly, because one of them was a Unimind Lockjaw build that had Unimind Lockjaw, Groot, and Pim Tank, and that's a 3-figure theme team. And then Abdul's team was a cosmic theme team that had 2 Groots, an Infinity, and a Star Fox. And I mean, getting beyond the fact that these teams also had an Unseen. So what did these teams bring to the table? Well, Abdul's team is the finest example of why Cosmic is the new Mystics, or Mystical. It brought Pogs, which brought Flurry, Plasticity, Sidestep on those guys alone. So map limiting. You brought Infinity, who brought Outwit, as well as range shrinking for the opposing team. A free action that should never be underestimated. I cannot stress
free action.
How awesome her free action, move a character adjacent to her, an adjacent character adjacent to her. If they're behind her, you've just given that character a 3-move sidestep to the other side of her. And you also use her as a body blocker if you're not already using barrier with her. So you have that. And then you had Unseen, who brought probability control and another Outwit, along with awesome shape change or super senses. And does he have shape change as well? I don't remember. I don't know his dial perfectly yet, but these are all the features that this character had in addition, or this team had, in addition to having a perplex that was a +2 perplex, a ranged combat, close combat attack with flurry with the addition of Mjolnir, which does not mess with team. So, and that's a cosmic theme team that was up against another cosmic theme team that had a Unimind, that had a Lockjaw, and had a Groot. Groot was adding figures to the board. Lockjaw is damn near impossible to kill, and Unimind, well, we all know Unimind is strong. And all of this is exactly why this keyword right now is a new mystical. It's super versatile. There's a lot of ways you can play it, and it literally has everything you need: perplex, probability control, outwit, damage, pogs, disruption. Yeah, I can't think of another thing that you need in a game. Amber?
Yeah, you pretty much covered it. It's we get these kind of bursts every so often, maybe once a year or so, or every 2 years, where we have a heavily themed set, where even the sub themes on the set work within that genre of things. Where one of the best examples of it, the last time we saw a big boost like this, was Amazing Spider-Man, where so much of that set was mystical, and like the main theme, and then the sub themes and the sub themes, and so much came out of that set that was good and competitive, and almost all of it had mystical. And we're getting the same kind of push right now with Avengers of Infinity, where the main theme and then the sub themes and then the sub themes, they're all pretty much in that cosmic universe, and they kind of just like, yeah, all right, that happened in space, everybody's getting the cosmic keyword. There was one of them, there wasn't like a set based around it, but there was at one point where Animal got a huge push too.
Amazing Spider-Man. Once Amazing Spider-Man come out, and as long as it was legal, if a character was Animal, you had to consider it with Alyosha Kraven.
Yeah. But yeah, so we do get these really big push every so often. And then one of the things that you'll notice is that a lot of the times when we get a big keyword push, it will be a generic keyword.
Yeah.
And then, because that's an easier keyword to throw on pretty much everything. Throwing out, because I find that they do tend to give out generic keywords more generously than they'll give out a named keyword, because you do get that extra bonus for a named keyword. Whereas with a generic keyword, okay, all you're getting is map choice. But yeah, so definitely Cosmic is a huge theme team right now. And it's when we get these big keyword pushes, you'll also start to see a big rise in competitive theme teams. Whereas when we have a downswing on keywords, you'll find that like the high competitive teams don't care about keywords. They're working off, because there's no real synergy between, you don't get those, you don't get the checkpoints, the check marks for what sort of things need to be in competitive play. So it'll be all over the place. But then when we get these big pushes where it's like, all right, this keyword suddenly got all of the meta requirements, let's everybody make a theme team.
Then it does go on to ask if Avengers is the other Cosmic, and kinda. I think Avengers should be a generic keyword at this point.
Yeah. I mean, we did see a big lean towards Avengers when we had the Age of Ultron come out.
Yep. Well, we thought there would, and then all of a sudden half the guys that we thought would have Avengers keywords didn't have Avengers keywords.
That's true. And same with Avengers Defenders War, where we got a lot of Avengers, but not a lot of them have seen competitive play.
I feel like
they kind of went otherwise.
Every time I predict the set is going to have a lot of Avengers, I get told otherwise by WizKids.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Bye, all. Michael. The mute button. The mute button.
All right, there we go. Sorry about that. time to panic. All right. So this past week I was playing with it was a seal game, and I finally hit or landed the one Thor with the calling down the lightning, and how I can move the special markers all around the map and stuff like that. I want to say like either I was too impatient with them, or I'm not sure I like the mechanic a whole like you can move it adjacent to another square once per turn, and leaving the other two just sit there. And I don't know. Do you guys like that game mechanic, or like okay? Well, of course, you're like almost dealing 3 damage and everything. It comes real in handy, but you pretty much have to be chasing everybody all around the map. And so, okay, I'll just hang up and listen to you guys. So like, what do you think of that piece? It's the 100-point Thor, and let me see what number he has there.
Which set was it from?
The Avengers Infinity.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was an Ultra. Is it the? Yeah, it's the rare one. Yeah, calling the lightning number 25, piece number 25.
Okay. I run into this problem all the time. Is if I don't play it in sealed, and it's just not my team timing of this set was just notoriously bad because I'm currently focused on nationals, so I end up losing track of this thing called lightning. At the beginning of the game, generate 3 storm markers, at least 5 scores from any starting area. Any starting area. Pay attention to that. When you say any starting area, it could be their starting area. Mm-hmm. We don't know if you caught that. Free, move 1 storm marker and place it in the square next to its current square. Free, choose a storm marker within range. Make a range attack targeting a character occupying the chosen storm marker, regardless of line of fire. Hit character is dealt 3 damage instead of... Okay, so I understand the level of impatience that comes with this kind of card. This kind of thing, it makes me go... The best thing you get out of it is the fact that the your opponent's going to be able to move around it. So at this is a character I find myself I would use in sealed, wouldn't use a lot in constructed, and then end up just this kind of thing forces your opponent's movement to a certain degree, and that's got to be the mindset you keep with something like that. Whereas trying to chase your opponent with this thing is a lost cause. So what you generally want to try to do is manipulate your opponent into the places you want them, and set something up to punish them for being in that place, which is where you want them in the first place. So sometimes mechanics like this are sugar-coated one way with the intent of being used another way, and this is definitely signaling out, hey, I have this thing. This thing is going to do something if you land in it or you get close enough to it. But then you force your opponent into situations that make it more dangerous to stay away from them sometimes, and then you go in for it. It does require a level of patience. It also you have to understand is that getting to use it is the treat. And the fact actually being able to use it shouldn't be the goal, if that makes any degree of sense. There is a poplet there that I gotta get bothering me. And that's kind of a mechanic like that is how I see something like that. Sometimes it's sugar-coated one way, so that you won't be able to use it in the way that you really want to be used anyway. And it doesn't move quite like the Iron Pharaoh's thing did, because the Iron Pharaoh also came with an extra 3 range on top of it. So this thing requires that the guy be occupying the special marker. Who's going to do that for you, right? Nobody's going to do that for you. So you got to force them to, 1, move away from it, or 2, force them into a position where they have no choice but to move into it. And then, you cheer like, you idiot, I got you. Don't call them an idiot. That's rude. But at the same time, you're just like, yeah, I got him. Forced them into it. And then watch as you miss, because that's what's going to happen. This is all the stuff I'm preparing you as a letdown. It's like, it's a cool ability, don't get me wrong. But fundamentally, it doesn't really focus. Focusing on making it happen is a byproduct of making it work, if that makes sense. So the idea is I put it in here. If you move into that square, you're in the danger zone, and your opponent's like, well, then I'm going to move around it. And you're going to be like, that's cool. Oh, by the way, I was hiding a hammer in that bush. I hope you don't like your face. So, also, a thing like this can present pressure situations to your opponent, forcing your opponent into extra actions they didn't want to be taking. So, ultimately, don't use it to chase. Use it to manipulate the middle of the board and put your opponent where you want them and where they don't want to be.
So there are ways to kind of make it happen. Like Jason was saying, you got to put a lot of work into it to actually make it work. But there are other characters, if you want to play around with it. There is a Professor X that lets you move characters. I think the mirror lets you move characters. But one of the cooler things about it is to not actually use the ability, but to use it as a deterrent, as Jason was saying, to manipulate the map. Last weekend, not this weekend, but last weekend, we played a casual game and played up against a buddy of mine who was playing Anarchy. And Anarchy places bombs, and then if you get within 3 squares, the bombs go off and deal damage. So basically what you can do with the storm markers is more or less just kind of put them in areas where you don't want your opponent to be and kind of guide them into somewhere else, because if they get too close to where the storm markers are, I mean, you're only moving them 1 square at a time if you do move them, and they're pretty easy to move around. But if you do it in conjunction with the map, depending on how you play it, you can basically change where your opponent wants to go. And instead of using it as a way to attack your opponent, make it as a way where it's like, oh, well, if you're going to go that way, we're going to be dealing you damage. So yeah, more of just a manipulation factor, and if it goes off, yay. But yeah, trying to chase down, unless you want to play around with like putting Hellion on there where you can continuously TK and then TK attack people into it and then dropping hammers on them. Like, the work that you have to go into to actually consistently pull off the storm markers, you're playing a completely different game at that point. Personal win conditions.
Yeah. All right. Nathaniel did pop another question in the Discord, and this one is, he leads with, I'll be honest, the meta play of Constructed annoys the hell out of me. Why don't we see sealed nationals and world championships? And there is a massive reason for that. HeroClix doesn't work in sealed as far as competitive environment. Certain players can pull off wins at certain situations, but they can't always consistently do it. And there, until we get a certain, it has to be like, I think we have to have 5 solid years of looking at every set and saying, I need to pull this or I lose, or if somebody pulls this, they win. Factors. And that's because we're not talking, WizKids is not a game that's designed with sealed in mind for playset. That's a big thing. It's miniature strategy games are meant to be constructed play. Basically, I build the team that I want to. Packs are more or less a distribution market, but they kind of capitalized on creating more and more purchasing product by making it random into a certain degree. Now, of course, I don't know the business of that, and if that's actually true, whatever. Not the point. The point I'm getting at is that there's way too often a situation where if a certain thing is pulled or you got absolute trash garbage, this situation skews too high. There's still like a 60 to 70% chance that I could predict outcomes of games based on the pulls once the packs are open. Right, because that's one of the big weaknesses of sealed as a competitive focus in this game. You can open the packs, and that's where everything becomes unbalanced. And there's still no level of balance. Now, I play Magic the Gathering, and there's still a certain degree of, yeah, okay, that guy pulled this mythic rare, or this guy pulled this planeswalker, and then he drew it. Now, that's the second part, is that he drew it in our game in a 1 in 40 chance in a 40-card deck, because that's how a sealed game works for that. In a 300-point game, what I pulled and what I'm playing is on the board. There's no chance of getting it. The only chance is the dice rolling for the attack. And some things will define other things or whatnot, and certain sets are skewed in incorrect ways right now. So, as an example, Deadpool and the X-Force had too much prop. And right now, you've got the massive skew that comes from the Colossal that you pull in your Avengers Infinity pack, right? If you got a Dune Buggy and trash, and your second pack was another Dune Buggy and more trash or something half decent, you got 2 Dune Buggies to deal with. So that's already kind of like, okay, Dune Buggy's a bad example. That's actually pretty good in Sealed, but you got a Nebula and trash, right? Like, if you're going to try to convince you that Nebula's any good, I'll fight you. Now, Nebula might be good against a certain number of things, but when you get into the championship level, once you get to the top 16, what we filtered out is the trash. And if once you get to a certain level, like an example is when I played 3 Harley Quinn sealed WKOs. I won 2 of them. And my pulls were a major factor in it. I am not going to deny that. The first one I pulled a chase and a super rare. That's bonkers. That's too much power in my hands. What's worse is in the final game of that first one I won, I rolled a 6 when I pulled the maximum ability on Harley. In addition to which, my team consisted of a chase, a super rare, a rare, and something else. A common, I think it was. Like that. That's skewed. That's skewed in my direction, and that's dangerous. My second WKO win was one with a Giganta, and there were some games I had to play my butt off. I don't think I actually lost any games in that tournament. I lost 1 game with the first set of figures, but then we get into the one that I lost. When I got into the top 8, there was such a drastic, like I squeaked into the top 8 because somebody left. So when you look at when we got to the top 8, I was up against Patricia. Well, guess why Patricia's team was in the top 8? There's nothing my team could do in that situation. That's the sealed environment. I don't think, like I look back on it and say, I did the best I could with the crap that I had, and I did make the top 8. But once you culminate into what everything was there, it was a trash team. That's why I don't think a Nationals or Worlds level works on that scale. Now, wash my hands of that. Team Worlds is the most perfect sealed environment WizKids has created.
Yes.
You get 6 packs. You get 60% of a brick, which means you reduce the chance of bad pools. Now, granted, Jay Solomon will say he got a bad pool. Cool. Okay. That was year 1. And I think that was Uncanny X-Men, which there was a lot of bad pool potential in that. I'm not going to lie. Uncanny X-Men was a really weird skewing set. So Team Worlds is perfect in the fact that you have 6 packs and you share the entire bounty amongst 3 players, and all 3 players can definitely maximize builds. You can probably get 3 good or 3 mediocre teams, and mediocre and sealed is amazing in sealed, right? Or you can get 2 really good teams and 1 team that you're not too worried about that might be able to eke out a win somewhere in there, right? That happens more often than the first thing I said. So long and the short of it is that sealed is bad in 2-pack format. Sealed is good in 6-pack format. Should sealed be a 3-pack format? No. Maybe. Yeah, actually, you know what? A 3-pack sealed might work. A 3-pack sealed might work because you get more possible opportunity and more to work with and more to build with. I was originally going to say you don't get that much left over with Magic the Gathering, but then in a sealed, in Magic the Gathering, you get 6 packs. You make a 40-card deck, but of course, 17 of those cards generally land, right? And that's stuff that doesn't come in the packs necessarily. So out of your 6 packs, that's 15 times 6 is 90 cards. You're using maybe 37. So those numbers actually kind of work out. The problem with 3-pack sealed is on a local level, that's in Canadian, $45 per sealed event. That's $90 for me and Amber. I'm paying that, by the way. That's why I'm saying this. But so it becomes expensive in that case. But I do believe a 3-pack sealed would be workable if it was financially feasible for a regular event to occur. 2-pack sealed is just too weak. 3-pack sealed could fix the problem. The World format is perfect. I think that's my way of saying it. Team World, sorry. Team World 6-pack. Yeah, the 6-pack Team Worlds format is the perfect way to run it. I don't know. Amber, your thoughts? I'm so passionate about this. I apologize.
I'll just leave you with this. The only tournaments I've ever won or the best I've ever done has been sealed.
What are you saying? Are you saying you're bad, or are you saying...
No, I'm saying I'm bad.
Oh, okay.
But I win tournaments when I play sealed. And that, like, a lot of people say that is like the great equalizer, where basically your polls depend on how you do. But I mean, I can do absolutely fantastic playing sealed, whereas my biggest weakness is playing constructed.
We're equal. We're equal. I won.
Yeah.
It's too easy for that to happen. All right. Michael, it's on you again, sir.
Alrighty. So a couple months ago, I asked a question, and this is going to be somewhat of a similar question, but in regards to the new turtle set that just came out. Have you guys had a chance to pick any of those pieces up? Have you played them? And the question is, should I? Well, okay, let's say in a constructed format. Do I want to build a 8-bit Turtles team and bring that to a tournament that would possibly see still like a Marvel and DC, like a meta teams and stuff like that within other sets like that, or is it more of a confined system of its own type of thing? Because like I asked you guys, well, can I bring a Star Trek team to on a tournament that I'm probably going to at least see most of the teams be Marvel DC like that? Can they hold their own? So I'm asking like a similar question, like can this new Turtle set hold its own against Marvel's DC?
I hope I said yes to the Star Trek answer, because yes, they can, because I almost killed a Sinestro once a little while ago with the Star Trek team. And that's not like a 25-point Sinestro. That's like that was a 300-point Sinestro. Amber, you go first because I've been talking a lot today.
Okay. So if we're talking specifically the 8-bit ones, and not any of the super rare turtles from that set, I would say they would shine best in a casual tournament rather than if you're playing a competitive environment tournament, bring competitive pieces. And I know that sounds like stupid advice when it comes down to it.
Sounds like obvious advice.
But like when you take a non-competitive team to a competitive tournament and then complain that you lost all 3 rounds because you came up against a Unimind or Lockjaw or Unseen in group, that like you're gonna see those things in a competitive environment. If those things are showing up in a casual environment, those guys are dicks. Basically what that part comes down to. So when you want to be playing if you want to play the 8-bit Turtles, play them in a casual environment. Basically where I'm getting with that. That took way too many words to say what I actually wanted to say.
I think you could really screw people up with those Fast Force ones.
The Fast Forces are a completely different issue.
But they're 8-bit.
I was referring to the 8-bit main set ones. Fast Forces, go for it. I want to see those show up in a competitive tournament. Those are awesome.
I also think if I was to bring a chase or two from this set to one of our local venues where I've seen competitive players or competitive pieces in these events. We had one young man who every event was playing the Kingdom Come Green Lantern and the Kingdom Come Shazam for a period of time. I was always able to beat it with weird stuff. A lot of it comes down to being able to outplay your opponent and read the board. I do think with these Chase Turtles, you can really mess with people, and I don't think they see them coming. I also think nobody should be sleeping on that Donnie as far as just bringing it to a local tournament. I don't think Donatello is the super rare Donatello is going to be breaking the meta anytime soon, but he's definitely one of the more likely figures for me to bring to a tournament where I might want the prize. That said, this Shredder and the Krang in the main set, everybody is talking about. The Krang stuff everybody's talking about, but he's not 8-bit. The 8-bit Shredder, on the other hand, both in the starter and in the main set, are both very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
I think somebody in design really likes Shredder. Cool. Shredder's an awesome villain, guys. Give it to him. He's a great villain, and I'll never deny anybody that he's probably one of the greatest villains ever in almost every single iteration, except honestly, the Turtles we all grew up with is probably the worst iteration of the Shredder because he whines too much and he's too much of a baby and he hasn't survived getting his head cut off and he hasn't turned Leonardo on the Turtles. I mean, it's so. Yeah, there's stuff that can be used on a local level where you can see the occasional competitive figure, and don't get down if it doesn't happen. Oh, I find locally competitive play is a good place to try things out and not get down on yourself. If you don't get the figure for the week, cool. You tried something. Let's try something new. See what worked against you and see if you can build off of that information. So, yeah. All right. Nathaniel had a talking with another judge who thinks the sculpt reuse signals the winding down of the game. Thoughts? And do you think this is a lack of content? Would more IP help or hurt? Okay. This is a dangerous game we're hitting right now. People are worried about the sculpt reuse. People are worried about a number of things. It costs a lot to make a plastic mold. I'm not going to lie. It takes a lot of effort and money to make those things. And if they can get extra uses out of the molds, I think they should. It's not necessarily a bad thing in some cases because they're often being packaged in sets that do have more different molds. There's got to be some level of cost-cutting methods when it comes to a three-dimensional plastic game. And I got to deal with something in the chat right now. But I don't think more IPs are going to help. I think more IPs are actually going to do more damage than good. That's because when you stretch them too thin, licensing fees are a big thing. Maintaining these licenses is a goddamn nightmare. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Amber, you want to jump on that while I go clean up my chat?
So building off of what Jason was saying is that, as he was saying, manufacturing is one of the biggest costs, of course, in making this game. If you can reuse a sculpt, do it. Honestly, like, I know that we get down on it, especially when we have like such a huge collector base for this. And back in the day, like, we used to get 3 of every character. So I mean, there was always sculpt reuse has always been a thing. And then on top of that, you had the Ellies were always a reused sculpt. Sometimes the uniques were a reused sculpt. Now, this is back in the day when uniques are equivalent to super rares nowadays. So it's like reusing a sculpt is nothing new when it comes to HeroClix. We're just kind of, I guess, we have newer players, or it's just a little bit more noticeable now because we don't have the REV system. We're not expecting it, or we're expecting more. Now, on top of the manufacturing costs, I know this because I ended up connecting with one of the artists, is that the 3D modeler artists are also freelance guys. They don't work for WizKids. They come in on contract. They create a couple of 3D models for a set, and then either WizKid keeps them on for another set or two, or it's the end of their contract and they go away. So when you have a freelance contract artist and you have them for X amount of time, or you want to pay them X amount of money, if you can basically, instead of having 1 or 2 art, like how many artists they have, create 70 different 3D models, if you can have them create 40 and then reuse 30 of those models, it's another way of keeping the cost down. Now, we as consumers complain about the sculpt reuse and stuff, but I bet you anything we would complain more if boosters suddenly went up by $3-5. So to keep boosters at the same cost that they are right now, there's going to be certain things that we just have to accept. And on to the IPs. As Jason said, licensing is not a cheap thing to do. They have a great deal going on right now with Marvel and DC, and it's some of the longest running licensings that a game has ever had. Other than, no, I don't even know if any of the Star Wars licensing have been as long running as WizKids has had with Marvel and DC. Now, bringing in the Turtles was a huge push for them, and that was more on NECA's side because NECA has that that relationship going with Nickelodeon for their action figures and their sculpts and stuff. So that was an extension on the NECA licensing to bring that in, but that was a big push for them to have that set come in. And then now we have Star Trek, and people are excited for it. And it's a give and take of gauging your audience and how they're going to react to throwing out more things. Now, if you look back at the years where we had those extra IPs come in, we had Gears of War, we had Halo, we had Assassin's Creed, we had BioShock, we had Kick-Ass 2. Who bought those sets? Yes, they were smaller sets, but they weren't flying off the shelves. They weren't, if anything, most of the general players, not necessarily the collectors, but general players were kind of passing over those sets. They weren't needed for competitive play. They were basically made for casual impulse buys because they were all set up as gravity feeds, and they went nowhere. And when it comes down to having to licensing a video game product like that, I can't even imagine how much money that actually costs WizKids to make those things. And I would love for them to delve back into the video game world, but I don't think that was very profitable for them. And I don't even know how, like, if we could go back to, say, last year or the last 2 years, one of the probably number one complaints that we had from the general HeroClix community was that sets are coming out too fast and there's too many sets. Now, if we keep it down to, say, 2 or 3 or 4 Marvel sets a year, 2 or 3 DC sets a year, 1 or 2 Turtles, 1 Star Trek, that's still a release. Like, that alone is still a release almost every month or every other month. Throwing more IPs in there either means that we're going to get slammed with sets constantly coming out, which was some of the biggest complaints we got from the community, or we see a downtread in other sets to fit these IPs in to a manageable production schedule. So instead of seeing 3 or 4 Marvel sets, we see 1 or 2. Instead of 2 or 3 DC sets, we see 1. And then we're getting 2 Marvel sets, 1 DC set, maybe a Turtles, maybe a Star Trek, and then whatever IP they're trying to throw out there. At this point, it's just, if anything, that'll actually hurt the game more than trying to elevate the game and help the game out of whatever slump the game may be in right now, where we would love to have more licenses, more IP, and play more in this wonderful world of HeroClix, but that could actually be a killer for it.
I hate internet trolls. Guys, get a life. Unbelievable. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Some guys we get this every so often where a couple of people jump into our chat, think they're being clever, swearing at us, or, saying, hey, your sound isn't working. And some of them are bots. Some of them are just flat out offensive. These guys were just flat out offensive. I try to clean that up, but because the Patron Hangout, I'm so far from my keyboard, I can't catch them. So I apologize for that, guys. I really do. And hopefully those guys don't find their way back onto the channel. I do, in fact, semi-regularly shower. At least every night, because I work out every night, right? So anyway, Michael, how you doing, bud?
Alrighty, so well, I guess I'm down to the nitty gritty here. Like last fun question I had, I guess, with Amber's talk about the sculpts and everything. I was gonna probably ask, in case we had any more time, was that like if I had an idea for a HeroClix type, turn-based game and stuff like that, and would I go to WizKids and like how to pitch it to them, or like how would I go about doing something like that? Or like, would they even take people off the street and say, hey, I got this idea for a game. Want to help me make it, or uh, would that be even possible? Because I'm only asking because I don't want to waste my time or energy. So if you think it's like, Mike, that's a stupid idea, just don't even bother.
I have some questions first. Now, would this be a kind of turn-based in the realm or idea of HeroClix, or were you looking to create a game around the actual HeroClix product?
I was thinking something more along the lines of like a HeroClix, based like you take the same turn-based concept like that, and maybe making it into a like how you guys surprised me with the whole baseball idea, and it's like if people there was actually a set that had baseball players in it like that. I would really like to make a something like a hockey type, but like like how you have the slot hockey type of thing like that. If we can get those miniatures like that HeroClix does so well, I want to see something like that. But if if that's not possible like that, I wouldn't want to waste my time talking to them or bothering them with it like that. If you think it's kind of nearly impossible to pull off.
Okay. The realities of board game design, your early stuff, it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck a lot, but at the same time, you got to do it. You got to get through that stuff. And this is coming from video games and familiarity with another person that we know who has created his own games. Because we used to spend a lot of time. We used to hang out with Eric Lang, who designed Dice Masters. He introduced me into better board gaming, to say the least. Getting this stuff through comes from failure. And WizKids, as a board game company these days, they are a little bit more focused on they're a little bit more focused on the dollar value end, if that makes sense. So what that means is if you're running plastic miniatures, they don't want to collect. They don't want to do another collectible minis game. I mean, they don't even. I don't think they make miniatures anymore for Attack Wing. Attack Wing they've been doing like the cards and extra dial parts and bits that you can use the same ship for an Attack Wing in a different way. Mostly because that's a costly thing. Now, if you're creating a board game for them, they'd be a little bit more enticed. This is just based on the moves I've seen them making, by the way. They have two collectible games right now. They have HeroClix and they have Dice Masters, right? And again, to a lesser extent, Attack Wing. But like I said, they're not making miniatures per se for Attack Wing anymore. They're just making what exists already and adding to that. And they're actually going more on a card, less plastic-based, less basis kind of thing. Now, taking all that into account, if the game that you're coming up with and you want to present to WizKids, you've probably got to keep your costs low. And maybe even make it a one-time thing. That said, when it comes to designing games, just do it. I can't believe I'm quoting the little bugger, but Transformers kid there, what's his name again? Shia LaBeouf was on to something when he had that video. He was like, you want to do something? Just do it. Because your early failures are the hard part to get over. And once you're through the early failures and you're making better stuff, you only get better. But you have to learn from your failures as well. I should show you some of my student games that I made. Like, it's just absolute trash in my school days of game development. And now I'm working on something huge. I'm part of something big. And that's, you know, I got there because all of this garbage I made and all of this other low-end work that I've done got me where I needed to be, and just kind of move forward on it. So as far as board game design is concerned, pay attention to what people don't like about things. Also, if you want to create a board game, get it published. It's the same thing as building a HeroClix team. Practice and test, because you need people's opinions, and you need a variety of testers. You need people who've never played board games before, because sometimes you might have to explain to somebody the concept of drawing a card. Our friend Eric, we're talking about, went to a mall just to test out his board game and do demos of his board game. And he told a person to draw a card, and they're like, "Do you have a paper and pencil I can use?" Because they didn't understand the concept of drawing a card was taking the top card of the deck and putting it into your hand. Like these are the kinds of things you have to understand when it comes to making a game. This is the level of ignorance you might have to, and it's not angry ignorance, it's unawareness of certain terminologies. You have to explain that to people. So you can't stress this enough. When it comes to this kind of thing, do it, practice it, try it out, see what people think, iterate. Iteration is the key. You know, when you come up with the idea and people are, you know, people who test your stuff and try your stuff out, make sure they're honest people, make sure they're not blowing smoke up. This is the one thing you don't want your family to work on with you. You want jerks to work on with you. You want strangers to work on. You want to go to your board game store or your local game store, and one night ask the guys who run it, like, can I try out this board game I'm trying to design with people in the back room or in the game area? And 9 times out of 10, they're cool with that. And you try it out and do it with complete strangers. They'll be saying, I don't like this. This is why. So you can improve on those things, or just find out that this is not the type of game for that type of environment, and understand that part comes from a certain understanding. Some people will not play your game, and that's the hard part about games, is not every game is played by everybody. You're not making, you know, a thing that everybody wants. When I'm making a video game, I'm not making Microsoft Word. Not everybody's going to enjoy the game that I make. Right? If I make a first-person shooter, she doesn't like first-person shooters. She's not going to play it. If I go and make a puzzle game, she might like it. I'm not saying you necessarily like puzzle. If I go make a Lego game, she's going to play it to death. Right? That doesn't mean every game I'm going to make is going to be a Lego game. I don't want to make a Lego games. That's not what I want to make. You got to make what you want, but you also got to make what people are going to play, and make sure that the people who are going to play it do enjoy it. So, that said, don't get down. WizKids does obviously contract out the board game design. Eric has worked on some games with them. A number of people who are prolific board game designers have worked with them and done a lot of really good work with them. So, you know, you may need to make a name for yourself because they may be hedging for safer bets, but that doesn't mean WizKids is the only person that exists. There's a lot of board game companies. There's a market of Kickstarter out there, but Kickstarter is an iffy place. If this is your first time, maybe you're not going to be able to work with Kickstarter, or you're not going to be able to get anything off the ground on Kickstarter unless you have like a finished, ready product and video of how that product works to a certain degree, right? Because that's one of the neat things about tabletop games versus video games. I can show you the gameplay and how it works, and until you've actually touched it, you're not getting the experience. So, all right, I've done my part. Amber, your turn.
Actually, I was going to build off of what you were saying at the end there, is that an incredible amount of board game design and production right now are actually feeding through things like Kickstarter. And as long as you can basically figure out what your production costs are going to be, what you're going to do. I mean, these are final steps. Basically, what you want to do is go through your rough drafts, your concepts, your play testing. I wouldn't suggest that from the very start, putting out a rough idea and then being like, hey, WizKids, what do you think of this idea? When it comes down to it, we love their game. We love playing HeroClix. They have some really great sociable guys that work for them. But in the end, they're still a business. And I'm not going to say they're going to laugh you off, but that's basically not how to go about business when it comes down to doing this sort of thing.
If what you have is an idea, they don't want you to tell them, not because they don't want to hear it, but because they don't want you to accuse them of stealing it if that idea state thing is all you have. If you have a prototype level thing and you bring it to them, and you're going to have contracts and lawyers ready to go and be like, this is my idea. You're going to sign this non-disclosure agreement before you have a conversation about it, and you're not going to rob me because I own this IP or this idea and this patent, or I have this patent pending. And I don't think you can actually patent a board game, but the point I'm getting at is you need to be ready before you approach somebody like on the level of WizKids or any other board game company or any company that you have an idea for. Approaching with an idea is the job of their hired game designers. They have a bunch of guys that work for them, they're contractors, and they're like, look, I have an idea. Can we go ground floor on this? And that guy is earning a salary for every word that he just said. So this is one of those things that until some people have to be told this, some people don't know this. This is this behind the curtains thing. They don't want to know what your idea is. They want to see what your product is.
Yeah.
And you'd be safer with ideas going for a salary, going for a working position, as opposed to selling them your idea. That whole selling idea thing is a very old thing that just doesn't work anymore.
Especially because in this environment, you don't necessarily need big companies for making your idea work. Do even a few quick Google searches, because I've done it before, you can find there are actually companies out there, some online manufacturers and stuff, that will just make generic board game pieces for you. If you have a picture of what you want your board game to look like, go online and they will print it on one of those foldable cardstocks, and all right, there, you can order that. You can make sleeves, you can make game pieces, you can make the actual boxes, just because there are independent companies out there that's all they do. They just make board game pieces. And it's an easier way for you to make prototypes and get your stuff out there and make it look official before going towards a company be like, hey, rather than, I have this great idea, do you want to buy it? Hey, look at this product I have, would you like to sell it?
We to kind of realistically do this. Amber at one point had the notion of being a board game designer, and part of that came from the fact that we own a lot of board games and want to do some things with it. And what Amber wanted to do in this case was make a game that was points based. So what we did was we took pieces from other games to try out her ideas, and we needed to find things and find the loopholes. And she had me and her brother working on it. And yeah, we're family, but we're the two members of the family who are not blowing smoke up anybody's pie hole. Yeah. We are not, because I am a game designer now. I was aspiring at the time, and I was very critical. And you have to be able to take the criticism, move with it, move to the next part. And your first 9 to 1,000 iterations are going to be on printer paper or using somebody else's board, and just, you're going to turn them and say, I need you to use your imagination for a second. And that's going to be the first couple iterations before you even start talking to strangers and trying to get them to work your thing. And that's when you go to what Amber was saying, trying out these things with, small stock, small amount of things. If you want to actually design your ideas for board games, you can get bags of meeples being colored, person-sized pieces. You don't need a hockey player on first go if you're making an NHL-based game. You need meeples to put them on your board. You need
physical
representation. You need some kind of physical representation. It could be pennies and quarters for your very first version. Your pennies are your forwards, your quarters are your defense, and the dime is your goalie. And they don't have loonies. I sound crazy when I say something like loony. So, anyway, long story short, don't not do it, but do understand that the idea is just the start, and you got to make the idea reality before you can get any reality out of it, if that makes any amount of sense.
Don't go into it thinking that, this is just going to be a waste of time, because the thing is, doing something this and seeing it all the way through, it's very time consuming. And you are going to spend a lot of time doing it. You are going to put a lot into it, where even just spending a few hours writing up a rule sheet, like, that's, I don't want to say it's never going to be a waste of your time, but it'll only be a waste of your time if that's how you're going to see it, if that makes sense. Because if you aren't going to spend the time to learn and grow, and maybe you never end up making a game, maybe you never get any further than just having an idea, but having that mindset of, should I do this or is this just a waste of time, isn't really going to help you move forward in whatever it is that you want to do.
Also, as another aside, yes, I work in video games, and if we meet in person, I don't want to hear about your video game idea either. Because my company doesn't want to hear about my video game ideas. If you want me to hear about your video game ideas, show me your app. I'm just kidding, but honestly, it is a common thing where it's like everybody's got ideas. It's more impressive to have the work. Mm-hmm. All right, actually, you know what? Before I let you answer the next question, I don't know if I've mentioned them on this channel. Extra Credits is a YouTube channel. They do a lot of things on game design, and one of the things that they did was an episode on being a game designer. And there's a lot of crossover between being a video game designer and a board game designer in general. So, and one of the things they suggest is making board games if you're going to get into video game designing. But at the same time, one of the things they also say is a game designer is not an idea man. Ideas come from anywhere. There's a lot more work when it comes to designing a game than just popping out an idea. Sorry, I hope I'm not crushing dreams. I hope I'm not. Because I do want to encourage you to do it, but do understand you've got to do more than you got to think. All right. Sorry. Next question.
Nathaniel did have a question. I don't know.
Oh, Nathaniel had one? Yeah, sorry.
It's all Greek to me. So
it's okay. Very quickly. What was my favorite NHL free agency news today? Everybody at the office seemed happy about Tavares. Hockey can be on the TV. I go Maple Leafs. If Maple Leafs are losing, I don't care. I don't keep track of the players anymore. I got to keep track of HeroClix, guys. Otherwise, this channel is terrible.
Hockey, that's the one that's played on ice, right?
Yes, it's like curling, but not curling. All right. You're up. Amber ran away. Amber went to the washroom. It's your turn, Mike.
Well, actually, that was the last question there, so I think we're pretty much set for tonight.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I mean, Amber's on her way to the washroom. I guess I can outro this on my own. Thank you very much, Michael, for joining us on the Hangout. You got here very quickly, a lot sooner than we anticipated, so appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Daniel, for offering us some text questions. We do appreciate your involvement. Yes, I'm a terrible Canadian because I don't keep track of every single hockey player in the world. Honestly, there's a lot of hockey players. I'm not going to lie. There's also a lot of HeroClix players. I do keep track of a fair number of them. Not enough of them, though. I keep track of pro wrestling, and I don't keep track of nearly enough of them. I'm often surprised by that, so give me a break here, Nathaniel. On that note, guys, thank you for opening your wallets to us and your hard-earned money goes to support us a great deal, and other guys on the channel as well, a little bit as in addition. I want to thank everybody who's watching right now live, and always remember, guys, if you want to join us at patreon.com/Clix, we do have a number of tiers that you can join. From as low as $1 gets you in on this action, as well as our Patreon Discord. $5 a month gets you early access to our recorded content. $10 a month gets you all of that, plus an action token every month as a sign. For every month's worth, you get an action token. We do send them out in bunches of 2. In fact, by the time we actually receive our Patreon money for this month, we're going to be putting in another order for action tokens for those of you who do put in orders for them. That said, if you do want to be part of us, we do appreciate any help. If you're watching this again next month, throw in a super chat. You're a patron for a day. But on that, Amber, is there anything you want to say before we head our way out?
No, I don't think so.
All right, awesome. Then thank you, guys. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Nathaniel. Thank you for everybody who's watching. If you're watching in the archives, we thank you as well. I apologize for that brief moment of terrible people in the chat. And I hope everybody learned a little bit about making games.
That was quite the tangent we went on.
Well, it's more of a somebody says I should be a motivational speaker in there. I don't know. I'm not. Anyway, have a good night, everybody, and let's see Giant Girl out. Giant Girl's gonna see us out.